Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music, music reviews. Yay! Music reviews. Tom and I are really excited because for this week we decided to take a break from reviewing new music just for 1 week. Just chill. Just 1 week. And we're going to review old stuff. We're going to do some throwbacks we did in the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson for our 800th, and now 801, we're going to do Deftones' White Pony. This is Deftones' third record, but I'm not going to be telling you all about Deftones because this guy is. Deftones is one of his favorite bands, and he knows everything about everything when it comes to music. I promise. He tells me everything. I don't even have to go to Wikipedia because I just talk to Tom.
I'm glad this is pre-recorded so people don't actually get to test me on that because I'd probably fail miserably. So you can keep setting up those expectations as long as I never have to follow.
Man, you fulfill all of my expectations.
Oh, all right. Well, okay, Deftones, White Pony. As you mentioned, their third album. Coming off of Adrenaline and Around the Fur, this was a huge change in sound for them. It was. And yeah, and especially, think about contextually in the year 2000, stuff was really shifting in the rock scene. You were moving from grunge into a lot of nu metal, which I think Deftones commonly falls under. Personally, we don't like genre descriptions as it is. I've never really liked the nu metal moniker.
It's more like poo metal.
Oh, oh great. Well, a lot of people call what's now nu metal as like butt rock, which there's a lot of crossover there. As I mentioned already, I really like Deftones, so I would definitely not classify them as that. I do like Deftones. Okay. Let's get that clear right now. So, White Pony. Whereas Around the Fur was still a very hard-hitting kind of standard rock formatted album, White Pony is when they really started experimenting with a lot more dynamics, a lot more electronic textures, like you get in like track 6, Teenager, for example, which is actually a good combination of both of those.
It absolutely is.
You get the lower, softer dynamics and some of those electronic elements. But whereas on their first two albums, you listen through them and they're both very good records. Adrenaline for me is probably their weakest one, but it was a debut, and it's still pretty good. It's an impressive debut. But you go through those, and it just kind of feels like good old rock track after rock track. Here, you listen to it, and it's like, what even is this?
Yeah.
It's a completely different band, completely different moods, presentation. The way that Chino Moreno approaches his vocals is completely different. He's got those aggressive moments, but he tries to be, a little bit more kind of intriguing with it. He gets the kind of that whispering element in there. As you pointed out, like he gets some kind of like off-pitch moments, which are very deliberate in creating a mood. And kind of creepier tracks like Digital Bath, where you have the verses that are just, they sound like a horror movie soundtrack or something like that, rather than just hard-hitting rock. But it makes those rockin' moments mean that much more.
This album is all about contrast.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I think really benefits Deftones and will benefit Deftones into their future. We've reviewed a couple Deftones albums as they've come out. Not White Pony, that's what we're
Diamond
doing
Eyes.
now. Diamond Eyes and Koi no Yokan, which came out a couple years ago. And Diamond Eyes, Tom, I know that you loved that album. I've grown on that album since listening to it and reviewing it on our channel here. Koi no Yokan was great. It was a good album, but I mean, it does nothing in my mind that they've done recently compares to what the tension and the dynamic contrast that they create on White Pony. And I gotta say, a lot of the tracks that I think fans at the time in the year 2000 when White Pony came out that struggled with White Pony because they're moving a bit soft and they're adding dynamics and Chino Moreno is singing instead of just shrieking.
These are all good things.
These are all good things.
Yes.
I like these things, and these things became my favorite tracks, like Digital Bath, Teenager. I think Change, track 10 is just one of the best. These are just some of the best Deftones songs ever written. And I gotta say, like Digital Bath, like that song, I've been listening to that song for like 6-7 years now, and I just have never stopped listening to that song. I love this. It's like one of my favorite songs of all time. When Chino Moreno goes up into that high octave in the chorus, holy crap! It just like it gives me. I'm getting goosebumps thinking about that. I mean, it's just so dynamic. It's just such a blast in the face, and it creates so much intensity, and that release of that intensity between that creepiness that he's presenting in the verse and that blast in the chorus is just absolutely phenomenal. You don't hear bands do this on a regular basis. And it's not that all of the songs on White Pony are soft. Look at the track that comes right after Digital Bath. Digital Bath rocks the hell out.
Yeah.
It just does both, you know. It shows that it's ambidextrous when it comes to dynamics and intensity. And then you have track 3, Elite, which is just a powerhouse.
Yeah.
It is just an onslaught of just riffing guitars and crunching chords, and you gotta just get into it.
And it actually won them a Grammy. That track did. Yep. Another thing that's worth noting is there are kind of two versions of this album. There's the original release that didn't have Back to School as the first track,
right.
And then very soon after, the record label wanted another single type track from them, so they asked them to take the closing track, Pink Maggot, and kind of tighten it up and make it single-like, which is why they made Back to School, in parentheses, Mini Maggot. And from what I've read, that's actually a decision that the band members have gone on to regret, because they really, as artists, they come out of the recording and the writing experience with a particular vision in mind, and adding Back to School at the beginning just doesn't fit that vision. So it's a point of contention. Obviously, there's a huge gap between the artist's input and the output that fans come to enjoy. Personally, I like Back to School. It's not a track pick of mine.
It might not have been the vision that the band had for White Pony, but how they went about doing a request like that from their record company, I think that they pulled it off pretty damn well.
Yeah, I think that they
do. It bookended the album nice. It's not necessarily a weaker track, and I think that it actually helps the album experience. So it respects all the qualities of White Pony, and certainly, other than adding a little bit of length when this is already a 49-minute record without that 4 or 5 minute long song. Other than that, I think that, they handled it very well.
And it doesn't make as big a difference on subsequent listens. For people like us who've listened to this album a lot, but as a starting point, I could definitely see it making a difference, because the huge difference between those first two tracks, and track 2, what's track 2 if Back to School is there? I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's some...
Feiticeira?
Feiticeira? I have no idea. It's a name in a language that I don't speak, and I apologize. That's just the way it is.
Iowa.
Iowa, folks, right here. All right. So the thing is, though, is that track is one of the more experimental tracks on the album in terms of just a traditional rock sound, because there's no structure to it. It's just moves from one part of it to the next, but it kicks off with just a lot of energy, and I think that it makes a very different statement as the opening track and helps ease you into the fact that this is a different kind of Deftones record. When you're starting the version that has Back to School, that's a very, obviously because it was meant for this, it's a very radio-friendly rock track with its kind of, like rapping delivery in the verses and a very hooky chorus. So it delivers a very different message. Now, like I said, coming back and listening to it, if you're already familiar with it, that probably doesn't make much of an impact, because it's just another good song thrown in the beginning of what is already a great album. So, with regards to which one we happen to be reviewing, it's kind of a hodgepodge. It all kind of comes out in the wash anyway, but I think that it's worth mentioning for those of you who might not have much experience with this album. That's just something to consider.
Tom, you and I picked a lot of the same tracks. One track we did not pick the same on, I picked this track, is Passenger, track 9 on the traditional album list, which featured Maynard James Keenan. Why didn't you pick that track?
Oh, you just called me out, huh? It is a great track. Mostly just because, I could probably pick this entire album for different reasons, so I kind of have to go with my highlights. And especially coming right before Change, the second to last track, which is one of my all-time favorite songs. I think it's a brilliant rock track. Those two are also two of the longer songs on the album. The two longest, not counting the closing track, actually. And for me, I just feel like I always gravitate towards Change a little bit more. Doesn't mean that I can't enjoy Passenger also. They're different songs, but at the same time, at 6 minutes, you can only pick so much, and I always love that track when I get to it, but then I'm always even more excited by the time I get to Change.
Absolutely. I think the only issue I can really come up with on this album is that there's just, to me, there's this just slew of just amazing tracks. Really, there's only 1 or 2 tracks that I would say don't fit into an amazing category, and one of them I would say, Korea, track 8, is a little bit, lesser than the rest of the album, so it does give it a little bit of hiccup in the listen. But for me, that's a really minor complaint on what is really just a great masterpiece of a record. What are you gonna give?
This one's a 100 for me.
You just love this album.
I have. This was a great album, and it's one of those life changers for me.
I'm gonna go 91.
91.
I really like this record. I don't have the same relationship with it. Tom's been listening to it probably since it came out. You were 10 when it came out, and you were
That's true.
probably like, yeah, this is the best.
Yeah.
I haven't been listening to White Pony that long. I picked this album up in 2006, 2007, somewhere in there, and I've been listening to it a lot since then. But still, 91, just for the just worthless number we're assigning to this, keep in mind, this is just a great rock and roll record from that era of music, which has been quite a few years now, 14, 15 years ago. If you have not listened to White Pony, please go out and do so. Let us know your favorite Deftones record, what you think of this, genre, how, if you were a fan of the band at the time, how did this change in sound affect you as a Deftones fan? We're really interested in what your thoughts are. Leave us a comment at www.velocitiesofmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesofmusic. Now, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and let Tom or I know if there's any records that you'd like to see us review on this channel. I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.